Everybody, we are ready and getting started. Wait a minute, I need to see you a little bit. I don't know how that got there. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. I promise you're in for a great treat, especially anytime we have Neil being able to present the latest and greatest information. And today, of course, is going to be on creatine. Before we get started, I have a few things to just cover with you, though. Number one, we are recording this webinar. I'll have this webinar uploaded this afternoon, so please look for it on our YouTube channel. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a moment. Okay. Also, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, just use the chat box in the GoToWebinar feature as far as the toolbar, and at the end of the workshop, we'll go ahead and answer every question. I know Neil is always fantastic about staying on as long as possible to answer all of your questions. Okay? Neil is also going to allude to, I think, 3 different handouts that he has for this presentation. Just email any one of us from .fit for those handouts, and we'll be happy to get them back to you. I'll make sure that you have all of our email addresses within the chat box as well, in case you don't happen to have that. Okay? So before we get started, just a couple quick things here. First of all, if you haven't done this already, please make sure you go onto Facebook and search for .fit Champions. It's actually a closed group, but we're accepting everybody, of course. But right here is probably our best source of communication to everybody. We all post all the time on here. Anytime we have new events, new formulations, news, whatever it is, we're going to be posting it on here. So please do me a favor, go on if you haven't already, and click on .fit Champions. Our YouTube channel, again, is also where you'll be able to find every webinar that we do from really the last year and going in the future. We put any type of new tutorial as well with the new site, and all the information is going to be right on there. Okay? So make sure you check that out too. Now, please, if you happen to have your calendars handy, mark it down for us already. On Friday, April 21st, we're going to do the exact same time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I asked Neil, can we do our next webinar on one of our products? And he said, what do you want to do? And I'm a little bit biased. I'm a little bit selfish. And I said, you know what? Can we please do my favorite, which is Amino Boost? So we're going to look at how to maximize recovery, especially for the weightlifter, it might be the cardio person, it might be the athlete, and heck, it could be us or mom and dad. Again, I'll let Neil go through all of that. It's just fantastic information. All right. Now, I realize that we have quite a few people on the webinar, and some of you might be brand new to .fit. So I'd like to give you a little bit of background about Neil Spruce, our founder. Okay. So for Neil, it all started back in Gold's Gym and Nutritionalysis days. Neil was an award-winning bodybuilder. After he formed the very first health club nutrition certification and program for members called Nutritionalysis, he then went on and formed what was called Apex Fitness. Authored a book at that time as well, went through a big evolution with Apex, did fantastic with it. He then went on and acquired the National Academy of Sports Medicine and really took that to the very next level with Mike Clark, as it wound up growing into one of the largest personal training certifications out there. Along the way, Neil was also the inventor of what was called the Body Bug, and we also called it the Exerspy. It actually even won an award in 2005 for Best of What's New in Personal Health from Popular Science. It was really one of the first wearables that was out there, and I think Neil would also argue to this day it's probably still one of the most accurate ones. Then we really developed .fit from there. .fit, as a lot of you are familiar with, we are determined to provide you evidence-based solutions for all of your clientele and members that you have. Now, recently, within the last year, we also acquired PT on the Net, a phenomenal educational baseline online that gives trainers, really anybody within our health club, all the information they need, as well as PTA Global, another certification that we're looking to bring again to the forefront and do just what we did with NASM. Nowadays, today, Neil, he's an international speaker. He was just voted in the Great 8 in Gold's Gym history, and really he's as determined as ever to help us help you be able to keep helping clients and grow our business. So with that being said, Neil, if you are ready, I'm going to pass the ball over to you, and I'm going to go on mute. And everybody, again, just let us know any questions, and we'll tackle those at the end. All right? Neil, over to you. And Neil, let's just make sure you're unmuted, okay? You're still muted.
Okay, thanks for the introduction, Rob. I appreciate that. A little over the top. No, I'm just kidding. It was great. I loved it. Thanks. I like listening to it. Well, anyway, welcome everybody, and thanks. This is kind of a special little presentation today for me, just because I'm normally doing, a lot of topics in 1 hour, and to be able to spend time on just one. And the reason we're doing this now is that, I've been spending the last few years of my life doing heavy research on any of the type of ingredients that we can use that are natural ingredients, things that can improve performance, things that can improve health. And I usually argue that very few people on the planet probably spend more time overall doing a lot of that research. So what's happening right now is that when I finish one of these things, and creatine was just finished just not too long ago, as you'll see from the presentation, we're going to be doing webcasts around them. And creatine, I would easily suggest anyway that this document or where this entire webcast is built on, the one that I just finished a couple months ago, the document, which is available to you on the site, like Rob said. We can email it to you. Of course, everyone up here that is familiar with our website, under the Learn category in the .fit site, you go to the PDSRG, which is the Practitioner Dietary Supplement Reference Guide, and you will click on that, go to Creatine Monohydrate, and you'll get exactly where all this came from. But it is, without a doubt, today, anyway, the most recent, most comprehensive document on creatine all the way around. Now, there's much more comprehensive documents on creatine and how they're using it in health and the elderly population, and there's some other ones that are very specific to other individual aspects of what creatine might be able to do. But overall, you won't find anything more recent than this. It has all the studies, in fact, even some of them through 2017. So what I'm going to do is spend the next hour with you guys and kind of go over all the stuff where creatine is today, not just in performance, but and just a little bit about where it's going all the way around, which is kind of why this whole thing is titled as it is. It is without a doubt a safe and effective performance enhancer. There's no question about that. 25 years of research tells us that, but potentially much more. And we'll be looking at some of that. So I'm going to go through the creatine monohydrate facts as of 2017, okay? And they're all in this one document. So again, you'll also have the ability to download this PowerPoint, which is only like 20 slides. But the document itself is where everything is contained, completely referenced with peer review studies all the way through. And then I'm going to, very end of this thing, I'm going to show you how we use it, whether it be working with the world's strongest man, whether it's working with NFL players or other sports where the player has to be able to gain muscle and performance very quickly, or they're trying to break through a plateau. So I'll show you how you combine it with the creatine XXL and NO7, which is a very common question that we get regularly over the last few years. Okay, so keep in mind the complete document is in the Practitioner Dietary Supplement Reference Guide. So that's what all of this is off of. So let's go ahead and get started. And by the way, this for me is, like I say, it's much more fun because it's just one topic, and so I don't have to hurry through this as I go through 50 different things inside of an hour. All right, so very simple, and this is, again, right off your PDSRG document. What's the goal with creatine monohydrate? It's simple, doesn't get any simpler than this. Increase muscle levels of creatine and speed its regeneration of phosphocreatine, which is the active creatine that produces, of course, ATP, beyond what can practically be accomplished by diet alone to benefit strength, power activities that are dependent, of course, on this energy system. So that would be like sprinting and weightlifting, but most importantly, that carryover. So the carryover of being able to sprint faster or lift more weights, what actually happens, that carryover into size and strength gains also applies to whatever specific activity, which may be any of these. So sports requiring repetitive burst of speed and power, and of course those with rest periods, and like in football, obviously you're not continuously sprinting, you obviously have intermittent rest periods. So, but you have to have very quick bursts of speed and strength. Okay, and these are some of the sports, and we call these, by the way, you should know this, in the world of sports, we call this intermittent athletes, where they're doing partly aerobic, partly anaerobic activities, and these are the type of sports. So that's what the goal is, to enhance the performance within these sports. The newest one, as I have here, is also, you're seeing it now being used clinically to slow aspects of aging, which we'll look at. And again, you realize what the title of this was. I got to go back to it because I keep telling everybody this is all I'll be doing from now on. Sports nutrition is the new healthy aging. Grow strong, and stay strong. This is really what we're talking about. I've been talking about for the last few years. Sports nutrition applies to everyone out there that wants to remain active and lean. It's just what we do for athletes just works 100 times better for the general population when it comes to extending their play span, which is, of course, my lecture that I've been doing for a long time. So this really ties to it. Creatine really ties to it all the way around. Okay. The rationale for creatine monohydrate being do it is very simple. It doesn't get any simpler than this. Creatine is in almost all muscle in the body, whether it be smooth muscle, so brain, cardiac, skeletal, and it plays an indispensable role in energy. So you have to have it for that immediate energy. The phosphorylated form, which is creatine activated, ready to go to work, okay, and donate phosphate, provides the immediate energy source for brain and muscle. So all those quick 10, 15-second bursts, and that includes the brain, thinking and so forth, and the activities that are taking place there. Thus, those are the primary rationales for creatine monohydrate supplementation are to increase, replete, and prolong the energy source. So pretty simple reasoning behind it. Now, does it do it? Absolutely. Creatine supplementation increases skeletal muscle creatine, so this is most important, of course, for athletes, anywhere from 15% to 24%, which is a huge number, and greater than 9% in the brain. And by the way, you're seeing all the studies listed here next to it. Even though you have them in the document, I put them on the PowerPoint. For those of you that don't get the document and you just want to use the PowerPoint, those numbers attached to the document. Okay, so quick mechanisms of actions for you science heads out there for performance and hypertrophy. The first one, and going back to the early 90s when creatine became popular, was very simple. And this first bullet just talks about better workouts, better results. So the long-term training overall results are going to be better. So again, that's bottom line is if your quality of workouts are better every workout through an entire training period, you're going to get better overall performance gains. And so the performance gains to creatine were attributed to that obvious mechanism of action: more energy, better workouts, better overall performance. And then the second thing that we noticed back there in the 90s was the fact that creatine also has a buffering effect. Of course, as lactic acid builds up in the muscle from the activity that you're doing, whether you're weightlifting or sprinting, and it makes you stop, creatine actually buffers that, so it delays fatigue. Okay, so those are really the two. Now, recently, what's happened is we've dug deeper, much, much deeper, and all of these things you will see in that document. Creatine supplementation is shown to increase satellite cell proliferation, and for those of you that don't know what that is, those just happen to be, these are little cells that are found in skeletal muscle fibers, and they promote growth, repair, and regeneration. So you see all types of activity of this once there's damaged tissues in the body. These things are activated to rebuild and rebuild stronger. It also enhances insulin growth factors, which is another big one we didn't know until obviously in the last few years. Increased growth hormone. Creatine supplementations have shown to do that. Now here's a big one. As I think all of you that are interested in muscle, or any bodybuilders we have on here, what's the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail is to figure out how to stop myostatin, which is a muscle growth inhibitor. And these people, they can just grow incredible amounts of muscle, really have a different gene system for that myostatin, where it's actually depressed. But we also see that with creatine. Creatine can alter the transcription factors leading to a reduction in myostatin, which of course is the muscle growth inhibitor. So again, there's another mechanism of action. And then here's the big one here. Improved neuromuscular function, facilitating the reuptake of calcium. Anytime you're doing all kinds of work, calcium gets into the cytosolic areas, and it tells the body to kind of slow down a little bit. So if we can improve neuromuscular function by facilitating the reuptake of it, there's a plus also. So these are some of the newer mechanisms of actions. The other one here that is fairly obvious, it does reduce muscle damage from high-intensity training and endurance exercise, so that may allow you to recover faster. So again, These are the more recent mechanisms of action. Now, so how does it work? All right, so I've taken all of the most recent studies and even the old ones. So you look at these first meta-analysis, and of course, as you know, that's a compilation of all the studies. If you research and look for peer-reviewed studies only, because we don't count the Mickey Mouse ones. These have to be peer-reviewed, accepted by science, evidence-based studies. Okay. Now, if you look at the first meta-analysis, I think this was done by Branch et al. So this was, again, regardless of protocol. So here's where it gets a little tricky for everybody on here. Muscle strength performance increases were 8% in performance in 1 repetition max and 14% in reps per set. And that's regardless of protocol. So they look at all the studies. Some people might have been taking too little creatine. You've also got what we call non-responders, people that don't respond to creatine. And you still have this kind of overall increase, which is pretty amazing. And we kind of call that effect size. That's why I put that down on the next one. So here's again, some more meta-analysis, regardless of protocol. So even a bad protocol is included in this. You have to remember that. Body composition and performance. Overall size effect of 0.24. As a reference for that, 0.0 would mean that there's basically no benefit to it. You start getting up to 3, and you've got a moderate to, a little bit more benefit. So 2.4 is actually very good, especially when you consider what I just said, regardless of protocol, because that's going to bring the number down. But overall, what that looks like is a 7.5% improvement from baseline versus the placebo at 4.3. Okay, and the effect size on body composition is less. There's no question that the effect size on performance is greater generally than the effect on body composition. Lower limb strength. Now, this is actually newer ones here. You look at the squat. The squat has an effect size of 0.3, which is actually, again, now we're getting into good numbers, and leg press 0.3, and then overall quadriceps, 0.26. Upper limb strength performance. So the effect size of about 2.6, but look at chest press, which is pretty amazing. You think bench press is pretty the same thing, but chest press is all activities, you're looking at a 0.6, which is like phenomenal. And that's because if you look to the next one, the overall pectoral or global upper limb, so all of your upper limb studies at 3, that's a pretty good number all the way around. Other studies. So, to put this in a little perspective for you, so those are meta-analysis that it took in all protocols. So not really fair, because what I like to do is carve out the ones that work and find out what that protocol is. Now you've got a much better chance of huge success. The effect size will be completely different. Keep that in mind. And we'll look at what that is when we get to the end. All right, so other studies in hypertrophy resulting in 6 to 12 weeks of training. Take a look at this. All the studies are listed here, by the way. 1 to 6 pound increases of lean body mass over placebo in all age groups. That's a pretty staggering number with 6 to 12 weeks of training. So that's a compilation of studies that use the right protocol, which is the loading phase and then a maintenance phase. Now, Creatine also demonstrates these performance and lean mass increases in older male and female, which is big, with no changes in kidney function. So all the myths about creatine and kidney, I want to put those to bed right now. That doesn't mean that you don't check with your physician if you've got a kidney problem. I'm not saying that. But the bottom line is it's not going to cause a problem in healthy people. That's one of the most important things that we'll get to at the end. So pretty staggering. Now, if you want to put a picture to this, this is something that all of us, back in 2007, when Cribb actually was published, probably in 2008, but Cribb et al. Did one of the most comprehensive studies on creatine, where creatine was the only difference in trained subjects. Now, this is big. You got to remember this. If you took an untrained subject, and I want to tell you, if you took an untrained subject and resistance training, and you put them into a creatine program immediately, I'd say their gains aren't going to be much greater than placebo, because everyone in the beginning, as you all know, a young person in the beginning of exercise gains an incredible amount of muscle. And I'm not sure we can speed it up that much. And in my opinion, there's no point in it. It's going to get enough. But so the way to look at creatine is with trained subjects, and that's of course what Cribb did here, and many of the other studies as well. But this was this one's staggering. If you take a look at this, above baseline. Of course, 0 is baseline, so that's where they started. Look at after 10 weeks. You take a look at the differences in 1RM, and creatine, of course, is everything else equal. You've got to remember that everything else is equal other than one used creatine, the other one's with protein and carbs, the other one used protein only, the other one used protein and carbs. So you take a look at the creatine mixture, which of course is the white lines there. I mean, it's staggering, the difference. It really is. And then you look at it in lean mass and body fat, same thing. And of course, you see the protein only group had the lowest, body mass, had most body mass reduction for obvious reasons. Looking at the third, though, they actually measured. So they did biopsies to measure the cross-sectional area of different fibers and so forth, and look at the differences here on the right. So this is probably the best study and probably the gold standard for all of us in sports that have looked at creatine as something that can make a huge difference in performance and strength. So what I did here is this. Bottom line is I just took the conclusion, it's in quotes down there, from what they came to about the improvements in hypertrophy and so forth, just so you'd have a reference. Because this, like I say, this is a strong one here, but it's in trained individuals. If you look at some studies back in untrained individuals, you won't see this type of changes because they're going to be pretty much equal, whether you're using creatine or not, in a very untrained young subject. Older subjects are different. Okay, because older subjects, as you all remember from my last lecture about protein, are very resistant to protein. So they need more protein than younger counterparts in order to make gains. All right, so now, another question I guess, so there's, anaerobic activity, and that's basically what we recommend creatine for, right? But I continually get this question weekly. Any effect on aerobic activity? So digging into all that, there's a whole section in the document on aerobic activity. So specific to enhancing an event performance, what we do know is this: that creatine supplementation changes the way your body uses energy in aerobic activity. Certainly in the early phase, where it's drawing more on the phosphocreatine side as it crosses over the lactate threshold, or moving into the oxygen side of energy production. So that may help decrease time to exhaustion, and here are a few studies that kind of looked at that. So it may. Now don't forget, if you gain 10 pounds of muscle, that might offset any advantage you may have on substrate utilization. So you got to be careful about weight gain on these things for these athletes. All right, but it also, this is the big one now, for athletes that actually train in heat, which is very common, of course, to ultra-endurance athletes and so forth, creatine supplementation attenuates or improves the way the body handles heat. It allows your core temperature to stay cooler and better sweat time and so forth. So all kinds of good things happen with creatine supplementation. So this may be another reason for experimentation for aerobic athletes when they're using it in heat. And I always say experiment because it's going to be individual if this works for you or not. But there's plenty of reasons, plenty of potential mechanisms, actions to at least experiment with it if you are a competitive athlete. And then, of course, here's a big one. If you're a cross-training athlete, there's some really great different studies on the decreases in strength after you do your aerobic exercise is offset by creatine supplementation. There's many studies that actually show that. So there may be a reason for a cross-training athlete to use it. And then, of course, the other one was, what about enhancing recovery to potentially benefit ongoing events? Well, there's two things, and this is a brand new thing here, that creatine supplementation has been shown to increase muscle glycogen stores post-exercise. I mean, to the tune of 82%. That's a pretty staggering number. So therefore, if you've got another bout of exercise, it may be of value to you to be able to increase your glycogen stores in a day. This all happens within 24 hours, to a much greater extent, if that happens to be an event that you need it for. So there's a good case for it there to help enhance glycogen restoration. And then, of course, the other one is that creatine does reduce protein breakdown as well in aerobic and anaerobic activity, and therefore, and this I got to put this actually in here, this study here. So, therefore, there's a protective effect on, recovering, like we talked about earlier. But the other part is creatine does, if you look at by increasing IGF-1 levels and decreasing P3 levels, that tells you that the apoptosis may not be taking effect the way it normally does when you're damaging cells from activity. In other words, creatine supplementation may promote cell survival. So there may be a recovery benefit for endurance athletes. And again, like I say, it's experimental. Certainly no downside. That we do know. All right, so and I just put this in here. There's nothing here. This is just the same thing as, the similar mechanisms of action are for muscle recovery or reducing exercise damage. I put them here. It's just a list for you. Nothing we haven't already looked at. But it does improve recovery from injury, and this is a big one here. Okay, that's another thing. It is used for injury quite often. That's why we put football players on it. That's why we put other athletes on it. If you can recover faster, in other words, if it takes 12 weeks from an injury, we might be able to get it down to 10 by using creatine in there. And of course, the post-exercise ingestion, it enhances the regeneration process through, obviously, less inflammation, no different than icing yourself to a certain extent, and oxidative stress. Okay, and it supports calcium homeostasis, which we looked at earlier, obviously, and also basically improves the anabolic environment, including the hormone and satellite activity that we talked about. So the same mechanisms are involved in building muscle from creatine's, the advantage of using creatine, as there are in reducing muscle damage. But the benefit, a more complete or enhanced recovery before each bout of exercise. That's pretty much the obvious. All right, now, I just stuck this slide in here. This is nothing for any of you, but just kind of give you an idea where creatine's going. So if you take a look at all the most recent studies, and this is all the way through now, in health, including brain, so these are clinical uses. None of you are going to be using it for any of these things. And any of you that may be on this call that are new, if you're interested in anything that's going on with creatine today, I cited the main source for this information that is in the PDSRG document that I created. And that's called, it's an article could be called Beyond Muscles, the Untapped Potential of Creatine. So again, if you want more on creatine and health. So again, look at some of these things here, because obviously creatine is very high in the central nervous system, so that's why it is studied in and may provide benefits to specific health conditions, including improvement in neurological and cognitive function. So you're talking about neurological disorders and trauma. And if a Rollins review on creatine supplementation on cognitive function showed that higher brain creatine is associated with improved neurophysical performance, including cognitive processing. So, and of course we know creatine supplementation can increase brain creatine and phosphocreatine. The other one here may be beneficial for, there's a couple of studies here that showed that women under certain conditions such as depression, so there's a whole application in the female population that may be found out for creatine and health. Improve vascular function, protection against muscle wasting in the older population, of course, and improve bone remodeling in the elder population. So these are the things from a clinical standpoint that are being studied. And again, it's here just to kind of tell you that this could be, creatine may be something of the future in, sports nutrition as the new healthy aging. Okay, now let's talk about responders, partial and non-responders. So these are how this has been looked into. Some subjects demonstrate lesser improvements, and they've been attributed to. So you've always, I know that I've certainly heard people that don't get the same response as that someone else might have. I'm actually one of those partial responders. When I compare results back in the day, when I used creatine versus not using it, I didn't respond nearly as well as my counterparts or training partners. So a lot has to do with your type 2 fiber population. If you don't have a whole lot, you're not going to respond as much. And then, of course, the gene polymorphisms, they've identified a couple of genes that help you really respond to creatine supplementation. So that's the obvious. Diet. If you are an omnivore, and I am, and everybody that knows me knows that I am a huge meat eater, okay? So I'm going to have probably a less effect. So I'm probably getting a few grams just from diet. When the average person, omnivore, which means you're a crossover of anything, they probably get about 1 gram in diet. So I'm probably get 2 or 3 because I'm a huge protein eater, and usually it is meat proteins. Versus if you're a vegetarian, almost all vegetarians have a huge response to creatine because they get very little in the diet, and your body only makes a gram. And then, of course, as I talked about earlier, ineffective supplement protocols. So you're just not either complying with the right dosage, or you didn't load properly, or your daily dosages are being missed. Because this is something that you have to stay up on to get the full benefit. So I put a little summary here on responders, all right? They generally have lower initial levels of muscle creatine. Duh, I guess that makes sense. But also a relatively high proportion of type 2 fibers, and they're genetically wired to respond to increased levels, okay? And, of course, kind of plays into everything you're looking above there, maintain a proper dosing protocol throughout the training period. Now, a true non-responder, so I dug this out, and this has just been discovered in the last couple of years. A true non-responder, they actually measured the uptake, and if it's less than 21 millimoles per kilogram of dry muscle weight, then again, it leads to less than that, then those are what we call a non-responder. So obviously the responder would have a greater than 21 millimoles per kilogram increase in creatine concentration. So you can see that for some reason the other people can't pick it up above baseline. So remember that. They might already have a high baseline. So that would be a true non-responder. And how many non-responders are there out there? Well, this number here, even though I had to put it in here because that's what I'm looking at with studies, I don't feel it's accurate. I think it's a lot less than that. And the reason I say that, because this includes people doing the wrong protocols. Doing the right protocols, I think your number is going to be significantly lower than that, which we'll look at the right protocols in a little bit. When you look through all the research, I pretty much captured it all. All right, and on that note, protocols in science. So these are the ones that you can hang your hat on no matter what. What are the most common and successful? And you'll see my little caveat for what we've done based on experiences. Loading phase. First 4 to 7 days. So you'll look at studies. Sometimes they do it for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. I haven't seen it longer than 7 days. 20 grams a day. Now, I'm putting everything in, if you look in studies, everything's done by, kilograms and so forth. So I put everything in pounds for you to make it easier. Or 0.14 grams, okay, per pound of creatine monohydrate per pound per day, split 4 to 5 times a day. So it's just easy to say 20 grams, but if you wanted to find out what the actual number is, I actually posted the number by weight, because if you're a 400-pound world's strongest man, and many of you know we work with those people, that number is going to be higher. So we actually do everything when we work with athletes by pound, so I included it in here for many of you. But this is going to handle pretty much anybody to 20 grams. Maintenance phase of 3 to 5 grams a day, or again 0.014. Now, here's where I challenge that number. I don't like the 0.014. That's very low. If you look, it can be as down for a 150-pound person. It can be as low as 2.8 grams or something, which, it gets close enough, falls in there. But we recommend 0.04. So that's going to get someone up, significantly different number. That's going to get them up around 10 grams. And you'll see that's what our recommendation is for the average weight person, or 200 pounds, gets you close to 10 grams as a maintenance dose. And that's what we much prefer. And then you've really covered all your bases. Whether you're using it all or not isn't the issue. You're going to at least be covering all your bases. I think it's too low when I look at all the studies, the 0.014. But that just happens to be what's out there today. Other protocols, and you've seen this, a single dose of 3 to 6 grams, but possibly, but again, the problem, it takes too long to get to the ergogen effect if you're working with athletes that are looking for it quick, but it does get there, 3 to 6. Now, here's another one that's pretty simple. I always like to make things simple for people, so if I'm in an elevator and someone's asking me this, I'll say 1 gram for every 20 pounds of body weight, and you're out of the elevator. That's all the time I have. So it makes it a little bit easier. And that actually works. It comes out to a pretty good number, obviously. If you're 200 pounds, that's 10 grams. And that's going to solve the issue for you, whether you're doing it slowly or whether you're doing it fast. So you all know what controlled release is. There were a couple of studies on this showing that if you took your 20 gram during the loading phase, in 30-minute intervals, which would be one pain in the ass, that's for sure, for 5 days, it did show an increase of 13% of creatine retention, which is a pretty big number all the way around when compared to the standard, which is 3-hour intervals, so the 4 to 5 grams a day, 4 times 5 grams a day, normal 5-day loading. So again, it's just analogous to controlled release. I always say the same thing like a multivitamin. I'd love to be able to take a multivitamin and cut it up into, 24 pieces in every hour, drop one in, because then that's the best controlled release there is, and of course, not practical or realistic. But that would be the ideal way to let the cells take it rather than kind of waste it as too much is coming in at one time. So here's what the evidence-based protocols that are in science, if you had to, tell someone these are what the numbers are. The only difference we have, of course, is that recommendation we have. But in all cases, creatine supplementation should be with carbohydrate and/or fast-acting protein for maximum uptake. So we did think it had to be only carbohydrate, but anything that triggers insulin, and I cited the study here, pretty much is going to help improve. And protein can do that, as you know. Many amino acids can trigger an insulin release. Will drive more creatine into the cells. So in all cases, make sure that you do that. So there's your dosing protocols. All right, so the next big question is safety. And by the way, the only reason the safety of creatine is ever questioned is because it works so good. Anything that works that well, there has to be a side effect. That's the mentality. And of course, that's the way drugs work. Drugs have, as you've all seen the commercials on TV. It takes like 10 minutes to get through the adverse reactions or the potential contraindications on drugs because there are severe long-term effects in liver, kidney when you're using a drug to treat something, but that drug's saving your life. So it's called risk-benefit. Well, with creatine, because it works so well, they said, well, there must be a problem. Oh, yeah, you're going to blow your kidney out, or all this kind of stuff. But of course, we have found completely the opposite all the way around. And again, this is very well established. 25 years of successful use in performance, recovery, and recently health have established that. But here's a blood test note, and this is important. We tell all the athletes we work with before their blood tests, and of course, all of our, and I think both of you guys know, or everyone on the call knows, I've got a son that plays in the NFL, so he's drug tested every, of course, at least sometimes twice a year. I have another son that is an elite fighter, and he's drug tested as well. So, and they go down for blood tests regularly. So we tell all of our, and of course, the athlete in the NFL and NBA players we work with, we tell everyone that's on creatine, you go off 4 to 7 days before the test. So just keep that in mind, and exercise very lightly. But here's the note that you should know. And this is why, back in the 90s when creatine first came out, they thought there might be a problem. There's a spontaneous normal conversion of creatine to creatinine from the diet, and that's totally harmless. Okay, so just from diet alone. So if you have a diet high in animal protein, your creatinine levels are going to be a little higher. Proper use of supplementation and or vigorous exercise would also lead to your blood test showing a little higher creatinine level. Normal levels are, as you can see, about anything greater or above or normal, it's about 1.5 mg per deciliter of blood, okay, which in a healthy person is completely harmless. Now, and we've done that. If you look in the document that I sent you, or the document, the PDSRG document, you'll see my blood test after 7 years of straight creatine use. This is a while back, of course. 7 straight years of a minimum of 10 grams a day. You'll see my before while I was on it. We purposely, with my doctor, said I'm on creatine. I want you to do my blood work. Did it. You'll see the creatinine levels, liver enzymes, all that. And then you'll see, just 1 week of cessation, we did them again. And you'll see it's not only normal, I'm well within all healthy boundaries. And that's 7 years of nonstop use. So I actually documented that. It's actually in, I'm always that perfect lab. And of course, we've seen labs of, we can do mine because I've approved it. To do our athletes' labs and put them in there, of course, that would be a violation. So you don't see all those. But we do these every day, labs before and after. So anyway, so our recommendation always is exercisers should not or lightly train the day before. If you're a user of creatine, cease supplementation 4 to 7 days before test, and you will get the reading that you should be getting for whatever else there is going on in your body. And there have been no progressive effects to cause negative consequences to renal function and health in already healthy individuals using the proper dosage, like anything else, obviously. You can abuse anything. And no negative renal effects found in aging populations. This is huge, and tons of studies on this. And let me give you an example here. Take a look below. 10 grams a day for over 5 years by Parkinson's disease patients, so these were all over 60, yielded no detectable adverse effects. I just put that in there just to make sure that you guys kind of understand how safe this really is. All right, so that brings us to the myths. They still prevail. You'd be surprised. I still get strength conditioning trained. I get ATCs, or athletic trainers. I ask the question, well, creatine causes cramps. So anytime a player cramps up on the field, they go, oh, I know they're using creatine. So wrong. So absolutely dead wrong. Okay, no negative effects, including muscle cramps and injury. In fact, creatine supplementation has a positive effect on muscle cramps and dehydration. It reduces muscle cramps by 60%. Okay, so again, this has just got to go to bed at some point, worldwide. Because, for obvious reason, we knew this in the old days because we all know that creatine increases your water content. If it increases your water content, then obviously that's going to reduce cramps. It also reduces the sweat rate, so you can actually go at a much better pace, lower your core temperature, and exercise heart rate. And therefore, the thermoregulation we talked about. So it improves hydration in exercise when you're exercising in heat. And there are no negative effects on kidney or liver in healthy users. And again, there's so many different studies on that. So there's your miss. Next biggest question I get, because you can only imagine, as my family, of course, went through high school and youth sports, and I coached Pop Warner for 10 years. And basketball and baseball as the kids went up. And so I get nonstop questions when I'm around the world doing a high school coaches seminar or for parents or anything. Big question, what about creatine for teens or children? Well, first of all, let's just start with this. There's no study has ever been found that shows creatine supplementation have adverse effect in children. There are 0. So just keep that in mind. Just Just saying that. In fact, 4 to 8 grams a day up to 3 years are used as therapy for synthesis and deficiency and neuromuscular disorders in children. So we know, again, that's 4 to 8 grams. That's more than an average user would use in a maintenance phase for up to 3 years in children. And then we're talking about even newborns that have an inborn error of being able to make creatine. But all that said, the lack of data in youth sports leads to our recommendation, and it's a CYA. For those of you who don't know what CYA is, it's called Cover Your Ass. Recommending 18 or older but we do have a caveat. So we always say 18 or older, you can consider creatine. However, the ISSN position, which is the big body of sports nutrition, they're out there a little. I mean, when I say out there, they're definitely not afraid to make a call based on all the research that's out there. As long as you're post-pubescent, okay, and I put that numbers down here. So, females usually are, somewhere after 14, boys somewhere at 16 or over, all right? Should consider creatine supplementation under certain conditions. And I just listed the conditions here. Involved in serious competitive training, because obviously there's no reason otherwise. Eating appropriately so it doesn't compensate for a bad diet. And the parents approve, because they understand the facts concerning the effects. And you can get all that information in the document right now that I have. And we have our stand on it as well. So I get that question, about, would you use it? Well, I can tell you this. It helps prevent injury. It helps recovery. It helps all of those things. I'm not sure. My kids grew up playing football and so forth. I don't think I would let my kid play football in high school or certainly in the junior and senior years without using creatine, because it is only positive to the health all the way around. But again, that's just it's a personal thing, and then my friends will ask me the same thing, and it makes sense. Again, some people it doesn't. That's all. But again, there's no evidence. There's nothing that you can possibly think of that could hurt the child or hurt anybody. But the answer is just a CYA 18 or older from us with this caveat down below here. All right. And if you want to see what's going on now, this just came out well after I finished this. I finished this document. Got to the end of last year. So this just came out 2017. In fact, I think it's ahead of print right now, but it's just got published and accepted. The average group of this was like about 17 years old, 16, and so they were anywhere from 15 to 18-year-old elite soccer players, youth. But look at this, at 2.2 grams a day. So you can see they're already studying it now in sports and youth. Led to 8% increase in peak and mean power output compared to baseline, and that's total. That's a good number all the way around. And total work from anaerobic test increased 7%. So again, we can see it does have a positive effect, and a very positive effect actually, in youth. And of course, they wouldn't test this if it wasn't ethically okay. So I mean, that's how sure we are about how creatine being safe today and okay. And again, I'm not saying there's any reason to use it. My younger son Zane, he might have used it once, the fighter, and I don't think he's used it really since then, because he's always got to constantly make weight. So it's just, no reason to. So there are people that they don't need to, and there's a sport that maybe won't help you. But it doesn't hurt to experiment with it in many different sports that we looked at earlier. All right, so now here's the other question. What about this form of creatine, this form? So here's what I've done for all of you here. You should know this. The creatine monohydrate is the only form with sufficient safety and efficacy research. So everything I said about creatine working and not, it has to be creatine monohydrate, because those were all the studies were taken, all right, and to support the use of the related claims, only creatine monohydrate. Now, so why are we keep looking for different forms? Well, the reason is as you can tell, from 20 grams a day on your loading phase and 10 grams, throughout the day, as you can see, that's a high dosage, because a lot of it just doesn't get in the body fast enough, or we lose a lot of it going in, all right? So the search is for a form that has greater functional absorption. That's the reason people do it. It's also a little marketing. You got to remember, whoever can say, well, this one works better than this one, that would because it's esterified, or we make it different, so it's really not as hydrophilic as other creatine substances. Okay, so it can deliver more. I mean, that's a marketing spin. But nothing has been proven yet, period. None have been proven better than creatine monohydrate at the proper dose. See, that's the tricky part. When you look at some of these studies, and I put them in here, I put them in here for you. These are salt forms that you can find. They've done a couple. And if you go to the document, it shows this. I actually listed the studies and their result in the document. I just don't want to go through it all here because it's boring as hell. But the bottom line is whenever they compare it and said it worked as good as creatine monohydrate, they were using a much lesser dose of creatine monohydrate. Or if it worked better than creatine monohydrate, the dose of creatine monohydrate was too small. So tricky stuff, what they do to try to find a creatine that sounds different and sounds like it's going to work. So none of them have proven better than creatine monohydrate yet. And here's some, in fact, some of them proved worse. Creatine epiester was one that really caught on to the layperson for a long, long time, but it's been proven to be less effective, even at the equal dose as creatine monohydrate. However, here's what I'm looking at. It's the only reason I put it in here. If you look at guanidinoacetic acid, okay, which is actually a natural precursor of creatine. It's actually used clinically to get creatine levels higher in the brain and some other parts of the body. Has been shown to raise creatine levels 16% higher than equal amounts of creatine monohydrate. So I have been looking at this, and you'll see some stuff out there. It is not ready for prime time yet. We don't know the safety effect of it. There's not nearly enough going out there. We'll keep an eye on it only because it's being used clinically, and that's a good test of safety over time. But we're a long way from prime time, so that's kind of the answer to that one. But I will keep an eye on it. All right, so what's different? For us, we get our raw material sourcing from Germany, and this is important for you to know because I'd say certainly 90–95% of the mass market does not, because it's obviously more expensive. Okay, and this is the company that manufactures our raw material. And the bottom line is because we are a practitioner product, and if you stay true to practitioner product rules, you've got to get raw materials that are special. They are different. And Creapure, without a doubt, is different. It's clean and stable from raw material storage through digestion, and that's really what the difference is. And when I say clean, it's basically the difference between most of your creatine comes out of China. I'm not putting down China, but their standards and their testing are completely different than Germany is the most strict around, period. Okay, so again, that really does tell us that the impurities that you find in raw material creatine are pretty much eliminated in the Creapure. Now, I put this is the website to them so you can go read how it's made and all those things. But at a minimum, this is what I tell people. Because listen, I don't want to have to pay for this stuff. It costs me, it costs me a couple bucks more for everything we make because it's so much more expensive to get a raw material that is this pure. At a minimum, it's a certified pure creatine monohydrate, which means it's clean and it's vegan friendly because it's totally synthesized, so it is vegan friendly. So it's something to remember. It's also maybe very important for long-term use. If you're using creatine long-term, 6 or 7 years, and it happens to be something that's got lead or mercury, like a lot of supplements do in it, there could be some other problems in the body that take place. So I think it's very important to have a clean, certified, pure creatine monohydrate like this is. And I just put this in here. This is off their website, and I'm not comfortable with it. I put it in here because certainly, we know without a doubt, and I'll tell you where this comes from. We know without a doubt that the Creapure that we use is way cleaner than what we used to use. The raw materials we used before would show a high creatinine level, and what happened was we couldn't get the product into Canada because Health Canada has a much stricter rule on the amount of creatinine allowed in the powder. So that right there confirms that at the very least this is clean and less may be more. Without a doubt. And this kind of shows you on the left side here. I don't cite normally things from people's websites, kind of garbage. However, these are facts because I get the analysis on a regular basis. But what does that mean? Are you going to get more results? When they talk about greater results with Creapure, I think you could probably get the same result, but the cleanness of it is what you really care about. You just want it clean. I think you probably, as long as you take enough of somebody else's creatine, you'll probably get the same result if it's really creatine. That's the other thing you have to worry about. Okay, so I just put this in here for what's different about ours all the way around. Okay, let's summarize this thing and then we'll go to questions, all right? I put everything here at the back end. Summary, the purpose. Supply an NS certified for sport, superior creatine supplement in its most clinically successful monohydrate form, keep that in mind, and using the raw material Creapure to maximize whatever its well-known performance-enhancing effects. So we've kind of done it all to make sure that you're going to get the maximum benefit from creatine. And the goal, of course, of supplementing creatine is to increase muscle levels and speed the regeneration of phosphate. So who would benefit from this? Basically all athletes seeking to improve training outcomes related to increasing lean body mass, improving strength and power activities, such as we looked at earlier, sprinting, weightlifting, jumping, and those benefits may also translate to other sports requiring those repetitive bursts of speed and power. So the ones we looked at, the intermittent athlete sports. Athletes with low creatine intake, or they just don't make a whole lot of it, who perform high intensity activity. Older adults seeking healthier aging and improved daily functioning, as recommended by a qualified physician. You're not telling people that this will help you, with your balance and all those things, even though there's plenty of evidence to show that, but they're older adults, even if they're not exercising, would benefit from creatine. We leave that stuff to the physician, and a lot of it's happening right now today. That's why I say the sports nutrition market is being driven by the aging population, not the athletes. Any exerciser, so here's a good one here, any exerciser trying to break a plateau, right, a performance plateau, in any related activity, whatever it may be. So it may improve their motivation to continue working out, because nothing's worse than using the same weight every day or the same sort of performance every day. It's nice to be able to snap that, improve it 7%, 5%, 10%. Those are good numbers and helps motivate. Aerobic endurance athletes, again, that's wide open. You got to test that. You got to experiment to potentially delay fatigue under high heat conditions, and maybe assist in recovery, including glycogen repletion. And then, of course, if you're going to use creatine XXL and other, NO7, it's ideal to have a powder because you can now increase the creatine intake without increasing all the stuff in the XXL and NO7 because you can't increase some of those things past a certain number. So this actually works great. We're going to look at those dosing instructions right now. All right. And the last part of this part of the summary here, I want to talk about young athletes who have not undergone puberty should not consider creatine supplementation. So I'm going to throw that in again on that last one. So again, at the time of this writing, and we're going to do dosing right now, the time of this writing, creatine monohydrate is the only evidence-based form of creatine for safety and efficacy. Don't forget that. So here are our dosing instructions. And make it real simple on top. This is a summary. Your first 5 days, you're going to take 20 grams a day. And again, it'll be split 4 times. You'll see it in the next thing here. Maintenance, 10 grams a day. So that's the easiest thing to remember for 99% of your clients. Now, we work with the world's strongest men, and these guys are freaks, as you know. I mean, they're 6'6", 6'5", 430 pounds, and very functional. So they're different numbers for them. You probably don't work with those. And NFL players also a little bit different numbers for them. Okay, but bottom line is this will work for almost everyone that you're working with. And it should be spread as evenly as possible throughout the day and with a carb and or protein containing meals or shakes. All right, so the loading and maintenance strategy. Well, again, we'll look at the rest of the stacking in a minute. 1 scoop, 48 ounces, fluid shakes, it's all just kind of spread out. I'll list it there for you. Tells you how to do it. On training days now, this is important. On training days, always use 1 dose before the workout and 1 after with our product. And after may be the most important, which you're going to see here in a second. You can use it in your pre-post shake. That makes it perfect. I put dosing by weight in here for anyone here that really wants to take it to the next level and dose by weight, all right? And I kind of gave you an example. If you're going to dose by weight on a maintenance phase, the loading phase is right there, but if you look at that maintenance phase at 0.04, which is our recommendation, a 200-pounder would use 8 grams a day. I just make it easy for you to do the math on that. Single dose usage, the 3 to 6, or between, and this is important now, or between those numbers there. And as you can see, the 0.05 is actually a little higher than ours, so I like that number there. But on training days, if you're using a single dose, always take it following the workout. Evidence in those studies are actually in the document that show that there's a higher effective creatine post rather than pre. Which is a little shocking to me, but it makes sense when we talk about the recovery benefits of creatine and the satellite cell proliferation and all those things. Okay, now, the length of supplementation period. So people ask me this, well, how often should I use it? When should I use it? Do I never need to go off it? I like it cycled throughout the year. The length of supplementation period should be based on the goal. So if we work with, right now we work at the combine. We have all the players in the combine. They're going in the draft here in the next week or 2. And so their goal is based on a certain time frame. So they've been on creatine for a certain time. Some have not, because some had to lose weight and so forth, but some have, or some are running backs that have to do a 40 that we worry about getting too much muscle on them during that period. So we have to be very careful on how we use it. But the specific goal, when we cycle players through, we look at their off-season, on-season, and what we end up doing is we drop them off creatine right before the season's opening game to make them 5 pounds lighter, because the water level will go down a slight little bit, put them on a maintenance dose from a loading dose, and now they have all the strength gains, the jumping gains, and all the great stuff that happen from creatine, and they're lighter. Performance enhancement big. So we cycle all those things that way. So we cycle it throughout the year for competitive athletes. If you're using it clinically or in the aging population, that'd be decided by an attending physician. So that's the length of supplementation, and I like 2 or 3 cycles a year max. I mean, again, you can do more than that. Obviously, you go all year. Many players just go all year. Just go up a loading dose and then go back down to a maintenance or even a low maintenance and then go back up. So I want to just throw the unique features, because the other day I was just I was up in Seattle, and someone says, well, I mean, why should we use your creatine monohydrate? And even though that's what they were selling, and he was totally cool about it. I'm just going to give you the unique features. We already talked about this. It's clean, certified. It's third-party tested, right? And we have very accurate dosing instructions based on expert experience. I would easily argue that there's no one that has more experience in pro sports than we do on a nutrition basis. And again, it's convenient power. It's very neutral flavor, so you can really mix with pretty much anything. That's one nice thing. And the fact that it's NSF certified for sports, so it's third-party tested, so it's really in there. It's clean. Raw materials are clean. So those are the unique features. It's just a safe way to get it done properly. And of course, that's just the standard that we have at the bottom there. All right. So I'm ready to hand this off. What I want everybody to know here is this. I'm going to get to questions. Here's how you stack it. Now, in the document that's available to you, hopefully you'll all ask for it in the PDSRG, these are all printed very nicely in there. This here just tells you what we do for using creatine with NO7 and a standard protocol for an athlete. You can see the multivitamin, the super omega, first string, okay, and how to take it and how much, again, per pound of muscle. Workout days, amino boost. Then on the second week of training, you bring in the creatine. And you go through the loading phase, and then NO7 on workout days only as well. So this shows you how to mix the two there. The next one shows you how to mix creatine monohydrate with creatine XXL. All right, and it tells you here, you go into the second week, and the 16 tabs of creatine XXL are always being used because you got to get the beta-alanine constantly up there. And then here is, I couldn't fit it all on here, but it's in your PDSRG again. So see the Word document on this. This is the Jack Stacked and Big Mac. So this is, you got creatine, you got creatine XXL, and you got the NO7. And this is, this will obviously blow you up beyond your wildest imagination as far as strength and size gains. And this is what we do basically during off-season heavy training, then cycle it back down. Okay. Oh, we already went through all this. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I put all this. Here's a data summary right from the PDSRG. For those of you who are just going to use this document and you want to jump to the punchline, there it all is right there. I just cut and pasted. Okay, Rob, we are ready for questions.
Great. Hey, listen, we've got about 4 or 5 questions that are listed, and please make sure if you have questions out there, send them on through, and I'll pose them to Neil. But one thing, and I apologize, I hope I didn't miss this. I heard you refer to it one time, Neil, but can you just give our audience a real brief description of the difference between our powder creatine monohydrate and our creatine XXL? I heard you mention the beta-alanine, but some people out there might not know what the difference is.
Okay, yeah, a good point. Then again, this whole thing was creatine monohydrate, and that is all that I gave you today was creatine monohydrate. Creatine XXL is creatine monohydrate plus. But if you take the dosage of 16 tabs a day of creatine XXL, you're going to get 6 grams of creatine, which is enough, obviously. As we know, we just saw that. It will be enough for the vast majority of your clients to get the creatine you need. But you also get the volumizers. So you have glycine in there, you have glutamine, and you also have beta-alanine, which is why you have to stop at 16. If you take more than that, you get the kind of tingling, that can happen from beta-alanine, which most people like. And of course, it's totally harmless. So that's what creatine XXL is still creatine monohydrate plus. All right, so you could use it all by itself if you wanted to, and that's for a long time. That's what we were doing. But if you want to get creatine up and do the dose and do the loading, you're going to need the monohydrate with it to do the loading phase, and then you could settle down to creatine XXL. But that's what those other documents were. So that's the difference there. And of course, NO7 is the same thing. It's creatine monohydrate, but it's got all of the other, cognitive enhancers along with beta-alanine as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right, we're going to start at the top. George had asked a great question. George is the fitness director at UFC Gym in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I'm just going to read his question, Neil. He says, I've told 4 people today that I'm attending this seminar, and they have all said something like, creatine is dangerous, makes you fat, dehydrates you, is bad for your heart or kidneys. Where does all this negative perception come from?
Well, hopefully I just answered that for you. So, you saw the myths and all the studies that are accompanied those myths. So they're all there, and obviously we know that and I'm pretty sure he got it. So let him make sure that he comes in and says, yes, I have got it now, because I covered it extensively on why people thought there would be kidney damage or liver damage and why people thought there would be dehydration, and it's exactly the opposite. So those studies are all cited in the document, and you see them also on what I gave you on the PowerPoint. But, again, we know that creatine increases total body water. We know it reduces muscle cramps, and we know it has no effect on kidneys. It all started, like I said, because it works so well. So in the early 90s, people just made stuff up about, oh, it's going to kill your kidney because of the creatinine levels being high. And I showed you what happened, and that came from early blood tests. And that, by the way, that happened in the military. Everyone in the military started taking creatine in the mid-90s. After Greenhalgh discovered, the doses that worked. So they're getting blood tests. They said, oh, my God, creatinine is high. Must be a problem with the kidneys. And, of course, it turned out it wasn't. But that's how those things got started. And they still fester out there. It's shocking to everybody in the scientific community. And of course, I'm a non-scientist. I just take all the science and try to distill it down for all of you, what's available today. It's shocking to us that people still think that. So if you look in the document, all that stuff's there, and you just give that to those people that are saying that.
Okay, awesome. George told me he got it as well. Thanks for the question, George.
Go, George.
I believe we have one of Frank Nash's clients out there. His name is Mark. He actually asks a couple questions. One, he actually asks, why is our creatine hard to dissolve? And Mark, I use it in our pre and post workout all the time, and don't really have that problem. And I'm trying to be very unbiased when I say that. So just make sure, however you're mixing it, you have some type of either screen or one of those metallic balls that helps to break it up, and then I don't think you'd have a problem. But Neil, his question to you is, isn't microcreatine better?
No. I mean, the creatine that we get from Creapure is exactly the right particle size that fits into, and again, they synthesize this very nicely there in Germany. So there's no micro, would just be smaller. So he's asking sort of the same question. If you micronize it further, will it mix better? Bottom line is it's not going to change the absorption or not going to change any of it because it happens to be finer. So on that note, though, Mark, you notice our amino boost sometimes, as you use it, you got there's still some little clumping, not clumping, but it's got little doesn't look like it's all dissolved. You're still fine. It's still going to go in. You just shake it up constantly while you're drinking it. So you do the same thing if you're having trouble for some reason with the creatine monohydrate, which I've never heard before. But no, it won't make any difference. It's the same.
Yeah. Neil, while I'm going to read this question, can you in your slideshow go back to the slide where you were showing the 14% increase in reps? You had that one slide there.
Yeah.
So while Chad's doing that, Jacob asks a question. Says, I wasn't sure where I could access the studies that were referred to, but in an earlier slide, you stated that you saw a 14% increase in reps done in sets after use of creatine. This was the same slide that stated the benefits for the 8% increase in one repetition max. What
Correct.
Reps versus sets was this 14% increase shown?
Well, okay, so you're going to have a little problem answering that because hang on. And the reason you're going to have a problem answering it is because, remember what it says up here, regardless of protocol? In other words, these are literally hundreds of studies in this meta-analysis. So it might have been 4 reps, it might have been 10 reps, 12 reps. It is a compilation of all the studies. Okay, so that 14% increase was across literally hundreds of studies. that measured the increase in reps per set. It could have been, again, 5 reps. It could have been 6, 7, 8. Obviously, the 1 RM is quantified here. So it'd be impossible to do that unless you want to go pour through all of them. I think that's a branch at all. You'll see it in the document. But you'd have to pour through each one and find out what those different ones were, which I think would be a little cumbersome. So that's why we take an average.
Gotcha. All right, awesome. My next question is from Eric. Eric states, Neil talked about untrained athletes in the context of younger and experienced athletes. I have several untrained clients, 60 years old and older, who need increased muscle mass. Can you, Neil, talk about usage, dosage, and the message in more detail to the, I'll just say, older population?
Absolutely. And again, even if they're untrained and they're over 60, I would probably use creatine. And I would use that simple formula of 1 gram for every 20 pounds. And I think that would work out just fine for them. It'll help. I mean, if you look at, now you go into the document, I have a whole section on creatine and aging. And you show that to your client. And I can promise you that they're going to feel very good about using it, throughout, different cycles. They can go on, they can go off, they can do whatever they want to do, but there should be no problem at all. As long as they don't have, they've got, their organs are healthy. We're not talking about someone that's on a dialysis or, obviously got some, disease states. But as long as they're healthy, this will, especially these older clients that need to put on muscle fast, there'd be no reason not to use creatine. Now, would I start them on their first workouts with it? Probably not. I would probably go 6, 10, 12 weeks and then introduce it to help motivate them and get more strength faster, because that's when it's really going to, as you know, that almost everybody gets gains in the beginning. If you're 80 years old and you've never worked out, you're going to get gains. So bottom line for these people here is that they're going to get gains in the very beginning, and then we can introduce it just a little bit later, and then put on a maintenance dose forever after that point, which is what we're seeing today.
Very good. My next question is from my good buddy TJ out in Colorado, UFC Gym. I know TJ is a competitive jiu-jitsu and MMA participant. You kind of answered this when you alluded to what you do with Nelson and what we've done with some of the football players. But TJ's question is, what are your thoughts on the use of creatine when cutting weight for an event? Well,
this is very experimental. And again, I add my son Zane too, who's a fighter. In fact, he just got the bronze in the Pan Ams just last week, which was pretty cool. Again, like I said, because he cuts weight, he just kind of stays away from it. But depending on, he's extremely lean, so that means it would affect him significantly. If you're not lean, you can lose way more body fat and put on muscle with the creatine, and even add a little bit of water from the creatine. So it'd be positive. You really have to experiment with it, but you obviously don't want to do it in the beginning. It's going to make you stronger. We know that. In fact, I've got, I'm sure you know, Gabriel Argas, the guys that just won all the on the big world tour. They're black belts as Zane's roommates. These guys here, they use creatine regularly, and but then they make their weight without any problem. So again, that's just like a maintenance dose for injury and for healing and so forth. So again, I would say you got to experiment. That's it. They really figure out, use it in the off season when you're just training heavy, and then you can kind of manipulate it as you watch your weight.
Great. Next
and you can
question.
always contact me, TJ. You know that. Contact me, and we can kind of work together on it for your personal use.
Awesome. Yeah, they're actually just looking at bringing DotFit into the clubs very soon as well, so we're excited about that. My next question from Luis: can you elaborate on why and how creatine can benefit vegetarians and vegans?
Okay, sure. Your body makes 1 gram of creatine a day, and the average typical Western diet brings in 1 gram of creatine a day. And you use about 2 grams a day. So that's why your creatinine levels, when we measure it through urine tests, that's why they're always steady, okay? And if they're way up, it means that something else is going on inside the body, so that's why you get that false signal. But vegetarians obviously aren't getting any, because creatine is found in red meats. It's found in muscle meat. Wherever it is in the human body is where it is in the animal. So if you're not eating animals, you're not getting any creatine in the diet. So it dramatically affects them. Their creatine levels of vegetarians, you'll see that all in the document, the studies that show that, are extremely low. And that's why they have the highest benefit of anybody in all the studies.
Great. Great. Give me 1 second here. I'm preparing for another question, so hang on.
Yep.
Neil, I've got a question from Samantha, who asks, let me see here, is the supplement plan beneficial for someone on a weight loss plan going to strength training as opposed to an athlete?
Say that again.
Yep.
Make sure I got it.
So, yep, is the supplement plan beneficial for someone on a weight loss plan going to strength training as opposed to an athlete? And Samantha, maybe we might need a little bit more detail about what that client's goal as far as what their outcome is on why they're switching.
Well, let's put it this way. Yeah, if they're on a weight loss plan, they can still lose weight. I'm not saying, when I say weight, I mean body fat. I don't want people to lose muscle weight, right? So we know that. Creatine can support muscle during weight loss. So it's actually very strong to put people on a weight loss. Now, the problem is if they're looking at the scale and they gain a couple pounds of muscle, they get pissed off if the scale goes up. And creatine could lead to faster gains in muscle. So you really got to quantify, what do you want? You want weight loss or you want fat loss? So creatine works for a fat loss program. As you look from those pictures in the slides that I showed you, you saw the body fat go significantly down in the creatine group.
Fantastic.
As long as their calories are below their maintenance, they're going to lose weight, and creatine can help support the muscle during that process.
Great.
And improve strength, as opposed to not using creatine.
Great. Now, the last question that I see here is from Steve on where can I download the PDSRG. Neil, can you guys, can you see my screen with our program up right now?
I see the program up, yes.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure our audience can see. So Steve and everybody else, all you have to do is when you pull up your program, come on over here to the Learn tab. We used to call it the Fitness Vault, but with our new site, we've changed the name to Learn. Clicking on it right now. And you'll see here in the very first tile is our supplement guide. I'm going to click on that. And then what you'll see here is a hyperlink to the 3rd edition, which Neil updates this really about every 2 years or so. And
well, it's ongoing, yeah.
Yep. Right here are all the different links. So creatine monohydrate, if I click on that right there, this is going to go ahead and give you probably more information than you're looking for.
Yeah, so, and it does, because I write it for the scientific community. I think some of you know I get published regularly in postgraduate
32 pages.
Sports nutrition. Yeah, so there's 32 pages on creatine. I don't think you want to, but that's why I summarize it all at the end. Everything is in here. It's all categorized. You see these bullets. Go back up a little bit. If you go look at the bullets, keep going way up. These bullets here are, I'm actually looking at all the studies, looking at the doses, and putting them together for you. So that if you did go through it, you would come to those same conclusions towards the end. I'm not just citing studies. I'm looking at every one of them. That's why it takes literally, I think this one probably took close to 9 months, this document here. About 9 months to put this together. And like I said, as far as I know, it's the most comprehensive recent creatine dossier anywhere at this particular point in time. 2012 is the last one I saw that was done by Cooper et al. That was the last one I saw that was very comprehensive as well. Not really as detailed as this, but certainly comprehensive.
Excellent.
Download this, print this, and you got it all ready to go.
All right. Those are all the questions that we have right now on the docket. And
by the way,
go ahead, Neil.
First of all, thank you, number one. Number two, you have my email. I mean, once you plugged into me, you can email me, Neil, Neal, at dotfit.com, dotfit.com. Any personal question you have, anything we missed, anything you want to know, and everybody that has known me for the last 30 years knows I will get back to you very, very quickly. And usually it's always within the first 24 hours. We used to use telephones in the old days.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much again. I will have this uploaded onto our YouTube channel a little bit later this afternoon, so keep your eyes out for that. I saw about 5 or 6 people went on to DotFit Champions already, and we've got you all in, so please make sure you check that out. Please mark on your calendars next month on the 21st. Neil's going to be doing Amino Boost, which selfishly is one of my favorite products, and I pretty much hear that throughout as well. And we just want to thank you all for your time, and coming to the end of another month, we hope your 2017 is going great. Neil, any parting words?
No, I think we're all good. Just remember, sports nutrition is the new healthy aging, so that's everybody. And as I always say, womb to tomb, it is grow strong and stay strong.
Excellent. All right, everybody, take care and have a wonderful weekend.